Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Yoma Daf Nun Dalid is primarily an Agadata Gemara discussing the Aron. We'll begin by discussing where the Aron is today, two opinions on the subject, and some proofs and questions on one of the opinions. The Gemara will then move on to where it was actually situated in the Beis HaMikdash and how it looked. And the Gemara towards the end of the Daf will describe the Kruvim and when they were found to be hugging each other, and after that the meaning of Even Shasiya, what the Even Shasiya was, and where the world was actually created from what point did it begin and how was it made. So the Gemara begins, and the Gemara has said that we were trying to figure out where the Aron is today. We have seen a machlokes based on how you learn a number of psukim. Was it carted off to Bovel when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, the first Beis HaMikdash, or was it hidden, Nignaz, under the Beis HaMikdash by Yoshiyahu HaMelech? So Gemara had said that one of the sources that it's hidden is from the fact that it's described as being Vayu Sham Ad Yom Hazeh. It's there until today, and the assumption is if it's there until today, that means that whoever is going to read this pasuk at any time in the future could say that it's there today. That means it's there forever. The Gemara says, but that can't be true, because I will show you places where the phrase Ad Hayom Hazeh appears, and it doesn't mean until today, it doesn't mean forever. The first example, which the Gemara brings, is a pasuk in Shoftim, which describes that Binyamin, Shevet Binyamin, lived together with the Yevusi in Yerushalayim Ad Hayom Hazeh. And it says, V'asa Yevusi Yoshev Yerushalayim Lo Yerishu B'nei Binyamin. People of Binyamin did not kick out the Yevusi, Kanani tribe, from Yerushalayim. Vayeshev Yevusi es B'nei Binyamin B'Yerushalayim Ad Hayom Hazeh. And the Yevusi and Binyamin live in Yerushalayim until this day, Ad Hayom Hazeh. The Gemara says it can't be that they're still there today. Now, we could just go and look and see that they're not there today, but the Gemara proves it from Psukim. The Gemara brings a brisa which quotes Psukim that all of the Shvatim were cleared out from Eretz Yisrael during the Churban. There was nobody left. And Rabbi Yehuda brings this brisa that says that there was 52 years in which nobody stepped throughout all the lands of Yehuda. There was not a single person walking there. And he quotes a pasuk, Al Har Mesav Chia will raise crying on the mountains of Venehi Al Nahis Midbar, moaning on the beauty of the desert. Kina kinitzisu mibli ish over. There's mibli ish over. It's been destroyed with no person passing. V'leishamu kol mikne. There's no sound of sheep. Me'ef hashamayim, from the birds of the sky. V'ad behema, until animals. They've all gone and it disappeared. So v'ad behema means until behema. What's until behema? The Gemara says behema is gematria 52. For 52 years, there was nothing there. Rashi explains these 52 years are from the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash until permission to rebuild was given by Koresh. Now that was 70 years from the Galus of Yechaniah, which was 18 years before the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Yehoiakim was sent in to Galus 18 years earlier, and that was the 70 years. So you see that there's 52 years where nobody walked there, so it cannot be that we could say that Binyamin is still in Yerushalayim until today. The Gemara goes further and quotes another pasuk and drasha on the destruction of Eretz Yisrael, and this one is from Sefer Daniel. It says V'higbir bris l'rabim shavua echad, and there was a covenant for the kings for shavua echad, which refers to 7 years. And the Gemara says that phrase bris links to a phrase in Chumash Devarim, which says "V'amar shel azvu es bris Hashem alekei avosim asher karas yima b'tzios eretz Mitzrayim," where Eretz Yisrael will be filled with fire and brimstone, gofris v'melach, brimstone and salt, for 7 years because of the bris that they violated. So the connection of that person, the bris and Sefer Daniel, goes to show that for 7 years, the Gemara says Eretz Yisrael was actually filled with brimstone and salt, and there was nobody who could possibly live there. Either way, you see that Shevet Binyamin wasn't there, and that's the Gemara's kasha. The Gemara answers, the Gemara says there's a difference between the phrase Ad Hayom Hazeh and Sham Ad Hayom Hazeh. There it just said Ad Hayom Hazeh. Concerning the Aron, it said Sham Ad Hayom Hazeh. Sham Ad Hayom Hazeh means that it's there until today. So the Gemara rejects this, and the Gemara shows, I'll show you a source where it's obviously not true. Sham Ad Hayom Hazeh is written, and they're not there at all. And that's a pasuk in Devar Yavim concerning Shimon, who took over the area of certain nations. It says, Me'em min b'nei Shimon hochul ha'arseya. They went to Arseya, Anashim chamesh mi'ois. 500 men, Uflatyo, Venaryo, Urufayo, Uziel, B'nai Yishi, Beroisham, those were their leaders. Vayaku was She'eres HaPleita La'amalek, Ve'eshu Shamariyam Mazeh. They destroyed the rest of Amalek, and they lived there, Sham ad hayom hazeh, and they're obviously not there anymore, as we've seen in the preceding brisa with its psukim. So you see that the phrase Sham ad hayom hazeh also does not mean forever. The Gemara actually brings another pasuk to prove that. The Gemara says that Sancherev, the king of Ashur, moved everybody around, like the pasuk says in Yeshayahu, "Kiamar v'chayach yad yasisi v'chamazikin v'unoisi v'asik v'ulis amim v'asu doiseyem soiseisi v'irid ka'abir yoishrim." Describing Nebuchadnezzar, saying how I moved everybody around. So Shimon did not stay in that area; they were moved from there, and therefore it cannot be that it means that they're until today. And the Gemara agrees it's a kasha. We've rejected it, and therefore this is no longer a viable source. So now the Gemara says we have a brisa that tells us that the Aron was actually hidden under the woodshed, the wood chamber in the Beis Hamikdash. There's a couple of versions of this following story. The Gemara says it was a story with a kohen that was fooling around with his axe. The Gemara says he was playing with his axe in the wood chamber, and he saw that one of the tiles, the marble floor tiles, looked out of place. It looked slightly higher than the other ones, which had shown that since it was laid, it had been moved. And he went to tell one of the other Kohanim, and before he got a chance to finish his sentence, his soul left him, and they knew that that was the spot where the Aron was hidden. The Gemara says, what was he doing exactly? Playing with his axe, or a different version is that he was choosing the non-wormy wood out of the wormy wood. You're only allowed to use non-wormy wood for the Mizbeach. So there were two Kahanim there, one that they were both Bali Mumins, they couldn't do Avodah, so instead they did the service of selecting proper wood for the Mizbeach. And what happened is that one of them dropped his axe. When the axe hit the floor, a fire came out from under that tile and sucked out his soul, and that was the end of that. Okay, so that's where the Aron is today according to this approach. Now the Gemara analyzes the pasuk more at length. The pasuk which we've been quoting that has the phrase Ad hayom hazeh there, it says Sham ad hayom hazeh. But before that, it says where the poles of the Aron are situated today, and it sounds contradictory. It says Vayerichu habadim, and the poles extended Vayero rashi habadim min hakodesh al pnei hadvir, and the ends of the poles could be seen in the kodesh. But then it says further, v'lo yira achutza, and they're not seen on the outside. So which is it, the seen or the not seen? So the Gemara says both seen and not seen. They do not extend. We didn't rip holes in them, so in the curtain, so they weren't seen. It's not that they weren't noticeable at all, because it does say vayirichu about them that they extended out. What happened was that they pushed the curtain, so you saw two lumps in the curtain where each of the poles were, and the Gemara says it appeared like the shirt front of a woman, and that is hinted at in the pasuk describing the close relationship between Klal Yisrael and Hashem. Tzar Hamar Doidi Li, my beloved is dripping honey to me. Bein Shaddai Yolin, he rests between my breasts, and that refers to these two lumps that were protruding from the paroches. Okay. Now, the Gemara goes further, and the Gemara says that when Klal Yisrael came to be Ola Regel, they would actually roll back the parochas, and Klal Yisrael would see the Kruvim. And what were the Kruvim doing at the time? They were hugging each other. And from this, they would say, look how beloved you are to Hashem, that the Kruvim are hugging each other. These represent our relationship with Hashem. So the Gemara has a lot of questions on this. The Gemara says, first of all, it finishes off the Brisa, your beloved before Hashem, like a husband and a wife. So the Gemara says, first of all, how could Klal Yisrael roll back the parachas and look? They're not allowed to see. Like it says, even when the Mishkan was disassembled, the Levim were not allowed to come and touch the Kalim until they were covered with cloths. Like it says, you're not allowed to see while the Kodesh is being covered up. So the Gemara says either they were able to see them at the time that they were being put into their coverings, or the answer is that during the times of the Mishkan there was a certain tznius there. There was more of a restrictive relationship between Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was like a bride still living in her father's house still has shame before her husband. However, once she got to the Beis Hamikdash, there's more familiarity, and therefore she's not shameful from her husband like a bride who has already moved into her own house or into her father-in-law's house where she lives together with her husband. So Gemara says, but what happened with that Kayin who dropped his axe and then he died? Why should he, if there was a familiarity in this relationship that they could even look in, so why did that happen? So Gemara says that was already after the Churban. that's like a bride who's already been divorced. There's obviously no familiarity in their relationship anymore. So now the Gemara says, when you tell me that they rolled back the curtain, they were able to see the kruvim, what's that referring to? Mikdash Rishon, Mikdash Sheni. Mikdash Rishon, there was no parechas, there was a wall between the Kodesh Kodashim and the Kodesh. And Mikdash Sheni, there was no kruvim, the Aron wasn't there anymore. So the Gemara offers two approaches, where it says either it was Mikdash Rishon, and it's not referring to the parochas that filled the entire space where the wall was, because there was a wall there in Mikdash Rishon. However, there was a doorway in that wall, and there was a curtain hanging over that doorway. There was a parochas there, and that's what was pulled back. Like the Gemara quotes Rabbi name of Rav, that there were 13 curtains hanging over doorways in the Beis Hamikdash. There were 7 at the 7 entrances to the Hazara. There were 2 more in the entrance to the Heichal and the entrance to the Ulam. In the Dvir itself, there were 2, those 2 that were hanging. And in the attic of the Dvir and the Heichal, there was another 2, just like there were below, for a total of 13. So you see that even when there was a wall there, there was a curtain that was hanging over the doorway in the wall, which was in the center, was lined up with the entrances of the Ulam and the Heichal, so Klal Yisrael could stand outside the Heichal and see all the way into the Kodesh Kodashim and see the kruvim there. Gemara's second approach is that we're talking about it in Mikdash Sheni, where there were parochas there instead of a wall, and your question that there weren't any kruvim there, you're right, the kruvim on top of the urn weren't there, but there were paintings, there were images, engravings, and sewn woven images in the hangings and the walls of the Beis HaMikdash, including the Kodesh Kodashim, and that's what they were able to see. And those drawings, the Gemara says, are indicated in several psukim describing the building of the Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara brings Ves Kol Kiras Abayas Mesav Kala Pituche Miklais Kruvim Vesimrais B'turei Tzitzim Milifnim V'Lachitzain, in Malachim describing the images on the walls. It says further, Ushtei Dalthos Atzei Shemen V'Kal Aleim Miklais Kruvim V'Simrais B'turei Tzitzim V'Tzipa Zav V'Yored Ada Krivim Al Timros Es Azav, again describing it. And then it goes further and says, V'Yafatach Al Aluchos Yideisav Al Mizgeroiseh Kruvim Arois V'Simrais Kemar Ish V'Loyoyos Saviv. Again, also 3 psukim describing the kruvim images that were painted or woven into the walls and the hangings of the Beis Hamikdash. Now the Gemara is interested in the last words here. V'loyois saviv. What does it mean? V'loyois. Gemara says that is like a man and his wife who are hugging each other. That's what the word loyos means. Now the Gemara says that in the time when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, the goyim came into the Heichal and they saw kruvim hugging each other, and they peeled those curtains off the walls. They dragged them in the streets, and they said, "This is Klal Yisrael. Everybody's afraid of their blessings, and their curses have to have so much power." And this is what they're busy serving: a man and a woman hugging each other. And they began to make fun of them in fulfillment of the pasuk in Eicha, Kol Mechabdeha Hizilua. All the people who used to honor Klal Yisrael now began to disgrace her, Kiro Ervasah, because they saw her embarrassment. Okay, now we refer back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah had said that there was a stone in the Kodesh Kodashim on the floor, raised 3 finger breadths on the floor, and that was called the Even Shasiya. The word once said, what does the word Shasiya mean? Markot Zerbaisa, it says from the word Hushtas, it's the foundation stone. The world was created from this stone, meaning this was the first stone created, and the world was built slowly around it. The Gemara says that is one opinion in a brisa that supports the opinion in the brisa that holds that's how the world was created, but there are several opinions on the subject, and the Gemara quotes the brisa. Rabbi Eliezer says the world was created from the center. First the center was made, and then material was added around it until we have the world the way it is today, like the pasuk in Eov says, Batsekes Afar Lamutak. He took together a lump of dirt, Urgavim Yudubaku, and he stuck clods of dirt around it, and that's how we got the earth as it is today. Now Rabbi Yeshua says actually the world was created from 4 sides and was filled in until it met in the middle, and those 4 sides are the 4 types of materials and elements which you find. And he also quotes a pasuk in Eov, which says, Ki lashel yomer heve aretz. The snow should become earth, vegeshem matar, vegeshem mitrois uzoi. All types of rain all come together and form earth. So these are the materials that were on the sides of the world, and they came together as the spaces between them were filled in with additional earth added until you have the entire world the way it is today. Now the Gemara goes further and quotes another opinion. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yitzchak says HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually threw a giant rock into the sea, and that was the foundation of the world. Like a pasuk says also in Eov, Alma Donei al Hatabo, its master sunk something, Amiyara Evan Pinasa, who threw its cornerstone. So you see that the cornerstone was thrown into the sea, and the world was built around that. Now the Gemara quotes another opinion is the Chachamim, and says that it was actually built from Tzion. It was built from Yerushalayim. This was the first spot, and this is what accords with our Mishnah. It was built from Tzion, and the pasuk that shows that is two psukim in Tehillim, Mizmor LaAsaf, Hashem Diber Vayikra Eretz Mimizrach Shemesh Ad Mevoyeh. Hashem is creating the world, and how did He do it? Mitzion Michlal Yofi Elikim Yofiya. From Tzion, the beauty of the world came into view as it was created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, the Gemara quotes a pasuk and a brisa discussing another aspect of creation. Rabbi Eliezer Haggadol says in a brisa based on the pasuk in Bereshis, Eila told us Shmayim v'artz b'hibaram. This is the offspring of the sky and the earth in the day that it's created. B'yoyim asayis Hashem lekim aretz v'shamayim, on the day that Hashem created earth and sky. So he says that what this means is as follows: the offspring of the sky came from the sky, and the offshoots of the earth came from the earth. It means it was created separately. There was a sky source and an earth source, and they're created separately and built around that. So Gemara says that the Chachamim disagree with that, and the Gemara says no, both were created from Tzion, as we said in the pasuk previously. That the entire world was created, the beauty was added around the centerpiece, which was Tzion Yerushalayim and the Evan.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.